Are the two decks from Phryexia Obi-Wan worth it? In this video I'll be going over both the decks, I'll be going over the commanders, what the gist of the deck does, my thoughts and opinions behind the deck, and then giving a conclusion at the end of is the decks worth it, kind of giving them a value from 0 to 10. The two decks I'll be talking about today is Corrupted Influence, which is white, black and green, and then Rebellion Rising, which is red and white. The first deck I'll be going over is Corrupted Influence, with Commander and Sub-Commander being these two. Ixhel, Scion of Atraxa, for 1 white, black and a green, you get a legendary creature, Phyrexian Angel, that is a mythic. It has Flying, Vigilance and Toxic 2. It has Corrupted. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters exiles the top card of their library face down. You may look at and play those cards as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it was mana of any colour to cast those spells, and she's a 2/5. Vishgraz the Doomhive, for 2 white, black and a green, you get a legendary creature, Phyrexian Insect, that is a mythic. It has Menace and Toxic 1. When Vishgraz the Doomhive enters the battlefield, create 3 1/1 colourless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1 and this creature can't block. Vishgraz gets +1/+1 for each poison counter your opponent have and is a 3/3. So when it comes to this deck, it is a very heavy creature deck, so if this is your type of thing, this may pique your interest. The main two things about this deck is that it gives Infect and Toxic counters, but it also proliferates. When it comes to this deck, there is 22 ways to rather give Toxic or Infect to each of your opponents. And when you have given Toxic or Infect to your opponents, there are 9 different ways to be able to proliferate those counters. When it comes to this deck, I absolutely love it. The cards are absolutely amazing in it. There is really good ways to give Toxic and Infect, and the deck is very powerful for what it wants to do. The only downsides I see with this deck is, personally, I prefer the Sub-Commander than the Commander, but that's just more of the way I play. And also, when it comes to this deck, it is Toxic and Infect, which already has a bad name, and people don't like it. So it's rather people are not going to buy it because they really don't like Toxic or really don't like Infect, or people are going to play it and your opponents are just going to go and you're going to be targeted. There are also some really weird cards that don't do Toxic or Infect or Proliferate that are really good in this deck. There's a good few stacks pieces that are really good. There is Windbomb Muse, Phyrexian Rebirth, Chronic Lantern, Trailblazing Boots, and Ghostly Prison, just to name a few of the cards that are in here, and the lands are what you would probably rather or regular see in these type of decks, so the land base is quite good. Overall, I personally really like this deck. It is one of my favorite decks they've released kind of in the last like 6 months. I find it really powerful, really good. The only problems I see with it is, one, the kind of Toxic or Infect kind of players not liking it or loving it. It seems to be like kind of like Marmite would be the best way to kind of say how this deck is. And then personally, I would rather the Sub-Commander be the Commander, and instead of adding like Ghostly Prison and Seabomb Muse, add in kind of forms of Flicker to be able to get more of the Might cards. Overall, I'll give this deck an 8.8 out of 10. The next deck I'll be talking about is Rebellion Rising. When it comes to the Commander and Sub-Commander, here they are on screen now. Neilai Sun's Vanguard, for 2 white and a red, you get a legendary creature, Human Rebel, that is a mythic. Attacking tokens you control have double strike. Whenever 1 or more tokens you control attack a player, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, you can attack with a token. During any turn you attack with a token, you may play a card, and is a 3/3. Othari Sun's Glory, for 3 red and a white, you get a legendary creature, Phoenix, that is a mythic. It has Flying, Lifelink and Haste. Whenever Othari Sun's Glory attacks, you get an experience counter. Then create a 2/2 red rebel creature token that is tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. For 2 red and a white, tap an untapped rebel you control, return Authority from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and is a 3/3. This deck is also a very creature heavy deck, however they have done it on a completely different way. However, when it comes to decks, I rather would a creature heavy deck or an enchantment heavy deck, or a creature heavy deck and an instant sorcery heavy deck. However, 2 creature heavy decks played differently is good, but I would like more variation when it comes to decks like this. When it comes to this deck, the main priority of the deck is to make a load of tokens and then power up all the tokens. So a lot of the cards in this matter about making tokens, powering up tokens, making them indestructible, vigilance and all of that, and having a big massive army to fight your opponents. When it comes to this, there is a total of 30 cards that make some form of tokens, which is considerably a lot when it comes to these type of decks. Also, there are 23 ways to power up tokens. However, a lot of them are some make tokens and power them up, but a lot of them just power up tokens themselves. When I mean power up, it rather gives their power and toughness higher, or it gives them vigilance or indestructible or haste. Kind of, it adds keywords and then powers them up, so your 1/1s become like 3/3s or 5/5s or 5/8s and stuff like that. One thing I do love about this deck though is that it has a planeswalker in it. Like 80-90% of the time I love when a deck has a planeswalker in. The only reason I ever don't is that sometimes when they release decks throughout the year, they release the same like 3 planeswalkers over and over again. So I would like a planeswalker in the deck, but what it has to do with the deck instead of just here is your generic like 5 to 8, especially since there's hundreds of planeswalkers out there. One thing I really love about this deck is that the cards really go well with the commander. They work very well all together. You can play the deck with the commander or the sub-commander and still have a really good time. The deck's really powerful. I have noticed the last few years they have upgraded or made the decks more powerful or more synergenic is the word I think. Like, they synergize better than other decks, but it does slightly feel that little bit weaker than it should be, especially for the price it's at. My biggest problem with this deck, and I actually would love to get your opinion on this because I'm not sure if it's just me thinking differently, however, I would love this to rather be a partner deck where one of the cards is a pure red card with a white pip, and then the other one being a pure white card with a red pip, and they both partner each other. I would love the cards to do the exact same what they are currently doing, but I would love Neali to be 2 red pips instead of a red and white pip, and then to activate the abilities when it attacks, you tap a red pip to exile the top card. I think that would be really good, and then it says partner with at the bottom with the other card. And then I want Athari to be 2 white pips instead of a red and white pip, and then at the very bottom 2 and 2 red to activate the last bit and then partner with the other card. The main reason I think this is it gives it that enough power to make it a really good deck because yes, you do have both cards still being red-white, however you're allowed to play one, be able to get the other to your hand faster to be able to play it, and they both help the abilities affect each other. However, you are adding a red pip to them partners to make it kind of a slightly more difficult. But overall, just the way it is, I would give this deck an 8.2. Overall, when it comes to these decks, I find both of them are really good. I really like the way they've been making better and stronger decks that you're able to use straight out of the box. I remember decks years ago, people just wanted them for parts, and now I'm actually seeing people use the deck more and just upgrading 1 or 2 cards from it, which is what I really like and I think is the way Magic the Gathering should go. But as always, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on these 2 decks. Would you buy them? Personally, I would buy the 3-color one and not really the red-white one, but that's just my own opinion. I don't really play that way, but I do think both at the end of it are worth it. But as always, if you liked this video, there is an unboxing video here, or if this is your type of video you want to watch, I have the entire playlist of all the Magic Gathering stuff I have given my thoughts and opinions on, and is it worth it here. But as always, remember to like, subscribe and all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next video.